Welcome Ramadan, welcome guests, welcome to our members, good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Church, where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. We welcome you in your brokenness and in your wholeness. No matter who you have been, who you are, or who you are becoming, we greet you today with love. I'd like to extend a special welcome to everyone who is watching us on YouTube this morning. During the prelude, please introduce yourself in the comments and let us know where you're joining us from. If you're in Oklahoma City, what neighborhood are you in? Or if you're elsewhere, what city are you in? And maybe I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Deborah Shin. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I have on a rust dress with beads. I co-chair Change for Change with Anne Murray, and we serve on the Social Justice Council. And I also serve on the Health and Safety Committee with John Scott. And now, the prelude prepares us for worship.
Good morning. My name is Tim Atkins, and I serve as your Director of Lifespan Religious Exploration. I am about 6'5", wearing a blue shirt and rainbow-colored glasses. My pronouns are he, him. We light our chalice here in our building in Midtown, Oklahoma City, a land that was home to indigenous peoples, including the Apache, Caddo, and Wichita, on land that was taken from the Creek and Seminole and other removed and relocated peoples. We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope.
Welcome again to those who are joining us online. Y para nuestros amigos que hablan español, buenos días. Todos son bienvenidos aquí. I am Reverend Diana Davies, and my pronouns are she, her. And for those who are blind, have a visual impairment, or watching us online with limited bandwidth, I am a white woman with long gray hair and glasses, and I'm wearing my blue clergy robe and my yellow stole. We have a candle of peace today, which I'll light right now. The candle is lit for the people of Ukraine. Please join me in a moment of silence, and if you pray, I invite you to offer a silent prayer for peace. Ramadan, which is the holiest month for Muslims, celebrated by nearly 2 billion people around the world, started this weekend. We are so happy to have with us our guest today, Adam Soltani, the Executive Director of CARE Oklahoma. CARE is the Council on American Islamic Relations. And Adam has served as the chair of the Oklahoma Conference of Churches, Religions United Committee. He is a former member of the Oklahoma Democratic Party Religious Education Committee, former board member of the Interfaith Alliance of Oklahoma, and a former member of the Islamic Society of Greater Oklahoma City Executive Committee. Adam Soltani is also a recipient of the 2014 Oklahoma Human Rights Award, presented by the Oklahoma Universal Human Rights Alliance, the 2015 Interfaith Leadership Award, presented by the Oklahoma Conference of Churches, and the 2015 Civil Libertarian of the Year Award, presented by the American Civil Liberties Union of Oklahoma. Today, Adam will be sharing with us some thoughts about Ramadan and a little about Afghan refugee families in Oklahoma that will be celebrating their first Ramadan in this country this year. During the service, we'll also be learning a little bit more about how this congregation is supporting 2 Afghan families. So welcome, Adam. We are so glad you're able to join us today. Our opening hymn is one that many Unitarian Universalists know and love. It's number 188 in our gray hymnal, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, which is taken from a poem by 13th century Islamic scholar, Sufi poet, and mystic Mevlana Jalal ad-Din Muhammad Rumi, or the person who most UUs know as just Rumi. One of the things I love most about our UU faith is the way that we find meaning, beauty, and truth across many faiths, traditions, and cultures. But I will also be the first to admit that sometimes in referencing different texts from different faiths, we omit the parts that don't feel comfortable. And in doing so, we can both misappropriate and lose some of the beauty and insight of the original source. This hymn is a case in point. Reverend Ranwa Hamami, who is a UU minister of Muslim background, has pointed out that this hymn omits the theologically essential words, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times. Reverend Hamami writes, quote, "These omitted words highlight the merciful nature of Allah, central to Islamic theologies, and the acknowledgement that it is human nature to make mistakes, including ones that cause harm," unquote. As we listen to this hymn sung by our choir, then, I invite you to silently add back those critical words. The entire original reading goes like this: "Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Come, yet again, come, come.
Good morning. My name is Susan Bishop. I am a white woman in my early 70s. I'm wearing a blue overshirt with some khaki pants. Every Sunday we take an offering. Since 2002, all the cash and designated checks from that offering have gone directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work. They are our Change for Change partners. For the month of April, our Change for Change partner is Teen Empower Inc. Their mission is to empower, educate, and motivate adolescents to make informed decisions for their sexual health. The funds collected will go specifically to their Stop the Stigma program. This program supports the emotional well-being of those who are HIV positive, plus it also supports prevention efforts. Federal funds will not cover this program. You can make your gift by sending a check to First Unitarian. Just write Change for Change on the memo line, or make an online payment through our website, 1UC.org.
Our story today is entitled Mullah Nasruddin Feeds His Coat. It's adopted from a Middle Eastern Islamic folktale, which is attributed to different countries, including Turkey and Syria. Mullah Nasruddin had been working in the fields all day long. He was tired and sweaty, and his clothes and shoes were covered with mud and stains. Because he had been fasting all day long for Ramadan, he was also quite hungry. But finally, it was almost sundown, and Nasruddin knew he would soon be able to eat. The wealthiest man in town had invited everyone to come break their fast in his home later that evening with a huge feast. Nasruddin knew that he would be late if he went home to change his clothes before heading into town. He decided it would be better to arrive in dirty clothes than to be late. Oh, what a party it would be. What a feast. As he walked towards the wealthy man's home, Nasruddin imagined the delicious foods he would soon be eating. Dates and lentils and chickpeas, olives and bread, hummus, falafel, chicken and beef, and best of all, the desserts, date rolls, figs, baklava, and more. When Nasruddin arrived, the wealthy man opened the door and looked Nasruddin up and down scornfully. From his worn, ragged clothes down to his muddy shoes. Without a word of welcome, he gestured for Nasruddin to come in and walked abruptly away. I wonder what that wealthy man was thinking or feeling. Well, Nasruddin joined the throngs of people who were all dressed in their finest clothing. The tables were laden with all sorts of delicious foods, dates, lentils, chickpeas, olives, hummus, falafel, chicken and beef, and best of all, those desserts of date rigs, figs, and baklava. Well, despite his efforts to hurry, the seats were all taken, and nobody tried to move over or to make a space for Nasruddin. In fact, nobody offered him food. He had to reach over and reach around people to get any food for his plate. Nobody spoke to him. It was as if he wasn't even there. I wonder how Nasruddin was feeling about this. Well, the other guests ignored him so completely that Nasruddin could not enjoy the food on his plate, no matter how finely prepared or how tasty it was. In fact, after only a few bites, Nasruddin was so uncomfortable he decided to leave. He'd hurried home, changed into his finest clothing, including a beautiful coat. So then Nasruddin returned to the feast in his beautiful coat, and this time the host welcomed him with a huge smile. Come in, greeted the host. As Nasruddin entered, people waved and called to him from all corners of the room as they invited him to sit near them and offered him food. Well, Nasruddin sat down quietly. Picking up a plump fig, he placed it carefully into his coat pocket, saying, "Eat, eat, eat, coat, eat." He next took a handful of nuts and put them into his pocket, saying, "Eat, coat, eat." And now he began to feed his coat in earnest, grabbing all sorts of food, like a chicken wing, a bottle of milk, and a miscellaneous piece of bread. He fed the coats lentils and chickpeas, olives and bread, hummus, falafel, chicken and beef, and best of all, the desserts, date rolls, figs, and baklava. Nasruddin became silent as they watched this strange behavior. And soon everyone in the room was staring at Nasruddin, wondering what was he doing? The host hurried over. "Nasruddin, whatever are you doing? Why are you feeding your coat in this manner?" "Well," replied Nasruddin, "when I first came to this feast in my old farming clothes, I was not welcome. No one would speak with me. But when I changed into this coat, suddenly I was greeted warmly. So I realized that it was not me that was welcome at this party, but my clothing. And so I am feeding my coat." The end. And now please join us in singing and clapping our children out, and youth out, and teachers out, as we head to our religious exploration classrooms for the morning, led by Reverend Diana. Reverend?
Start clap. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Yay.
I was lucky to work with Mary Lee Perriman and Ingrid Young, and we led the effort to furnish 2 apartments for 2 Afghan families and help them settle into a new U.S. Oklahoma home. Through everyone's generosity, we collected $3,000 last December, the largest change for change we'd ever had. This was to furnish the apartments. Over 35 of you worked with us. David White and Ingrid and Rob Ham drove many miles in David's pickup to gather the furniture for the apartments. It's been a joy to meet the Papazals, a married couple with a son, Mohammed Salim Naid, and 1.5-year-old Osman. Also, the Barkazas, a married couple, Abdul Malik Hajira and Hajira, his wife. They are each now living in the Indigo Apartments off Pennsylvania at about 130th. After we worked several weeks to locate and buy the furnishings each family then moved into their new American home, they came with 2 suitcases and the clothes they were wearing. And the suitcases didn't have wheels. We all soon learned to remove our shoes as we entered their apartments, and if there was time, to join them for tea, along with a savory snack and a sweet snack. It's relaxing to talk over a cup of tea. We're now helping them make a life in Oklahoma City. We've learned to use Google Translate and WhatsApp to communicate and to call a translator on the phone if the topic is particularly complicated. Dr. Salim's English is pretty good. He was a facial surgeon in a police hospital in Kabul. The men now have, in fact, janitorial jobs here in Oklahoma City. They go very early in the morning. It's been an education for me, particularly, to watch the TV coverage of the people living in Afghanistan, to getting to know Dr. Salam and Naid and Osman and Malik and Hajira, who are from Kandahar. They did not know each other before coming to Oklahoma and being sponsored by us. They are each individuals with their own needs. Hajara had not baked naan in an electric oven, and after she burned her arm, we went to Walmart for a long glove and some tongs and some burn cream. Naid needed new clothes. Remember, the 3 of them arrived in 2 suitcases. One of my nicest experiences has been having a meal with each of the families. The Barkazais offered me lunch one day at the hotel where they were staying. Hajara spread an oilcloth on the bed and used naan to eat the food. Then later, one Saturday, I sat with the Papazals as they moved into their new two-bedroom apartment. Naid served the most delicious eggplant and rice and another okra dish. Again, Naid served 5 adults around a large oilcloth. The Easterners used naan to eat the food. They do have silverware for us Westerners, but I successfully used the naan. It was delicious. Little bites. We go shopping at the India Bazaar for halal meat. We also shopped at a clothing bazaar sponsored by CARE. It's a clothing exchange to help them prepare for Ramadan. We got there early to get the best selection. Osman loves shoes. He went through all the boxes of shoes at the bazaar, trying on the most colorful ones. Naid eventually found him a slip-on pair that fits him perfectly. He's growing so fast that he now needs a crib to sleep. They're lovely people and very, very grateful for all that everyone does for them. They don't have internet, which they're used to having, and they miss. And they have no personal transportation, although they have driver's license and drove in Kabul. They have permit license right now. They're beyond ready to begin English classes through the Catholic Charities Program Spiro. Barbara Galvan is coordinating that. And Naid wants driver's license. She also wants, if any of you have a pasta maker that you bought and now you used 5 times and now it sits in the cabinet, she'd also love to have one of those. Barbara and Claire Allwater have taken them to medical appointments. My sweetest reflection is watching Osman grow. Also, Hajira. She is becoming more and more comfortable and self-assured. Her caseworker told me she has grown in self-confidence since we've been working with them. Hajira is very quiet and embroiders the most beautiful flowers on cloth and geometric patterns as well. I hope you can meet them as they continue to make adjustments here in America. However, we can help them make a peaceful life here in Oklahoma City. The joys will in large part be ours.
Thank you, Deborah. You know, there are some hymns that we sing on autopilot, enjoying the melody, but maybe not paying all that much attention to the words, unless we disagree with them, because we are UUs after all. But as I watch the horrors taking place in Ukraine, and as I hear from our friends who are refugees in this country about the terror they've experienced in their homelands, as I see laws being passed around the United States and here in Oklahoma that single out for unconscionable cruelty those who are already most vulnerable in our society, such as queer, trans, and non-binary children and youth. There are 2 verses in one of our most beloved hymns that have been rising up for me as a prayer. It's in that spirit, a spirit of prayer or meditation, that I want to share these words with you. These are the 3rd and 4th verses of the hymn, "Wake Now My Senses." Wake now, compassion. Give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Or we might say love embraces all. And now, in a spirit of compassion and a spirit of conscience, I invite you in silence to lift upon your hearts the names of the people and other beings that are calling to you to be seen, acknowledged, and loved in solidarity and empathy and in joy. May it be so. Amen. And once again, I am so pleased to have Adam Sultani as our guest today.
Good morning. I greet you with the greetings of peace that Muslims greet each other with every time they meet. And I say to you, Assalamu alaikum, which means a greeting of peace, but more than that. In the Islamic tradition, we are taught that this beautiful phrase that you will hear Muslims utter to each other whenever they come into contact with one another is a prayer of peace for this life and the next. My name is Adam Sultani, and I am the Executive Director of CARE Oklahoma, which is the Council on American Islamic Relations. I have been in this position for almost a decade. And before we get into talking about the holy month of Ramadan, before we get into talking about our new Afghan neighbors, of which we have received 1,006 to be precise, 227 families, I want to share with you also some of the challenges that Muslims go through, which is an unfortunate reality. We live in a post-9/11 world. Looking at the crowd in front of me, I know you know what that means. I also teach at Oklahoma State University, and my first semester there, I tried to explain that to my students, and they didn't understand because they were born after that. Then I started to realize, man, I'm getting old. But nevertheless, in a post-9/11 world, life for Muslims in America has not always been easy. One of the most challenging things I have ever faced as a Muslim in America is not really the name calling or some of the legal issues that we face. Sometimes the legislator here in Oklahoma tries to pass laws that are hurtful not only to the Muslim community but also harmful to religious freedom. But rather, the most hurtful thing I've ever heard pointed towards me or towards any other Muslim is to be told to go back home or go back to where you came from. Because to me, to be told to go back home or go back to where you came from is to be told that you are not part of the American fabric. You are not part of the American dream. You are not part of the tapestry of this beautiful land that promises religious freedom for all people. It used to make me really upset. It used to get my blood boiling, you know. But I come from a family of educators. Both my parents have PhDs, and they taught me, try to use moments like these as educational experiences for the people who are ignorant and do not know any better. So I learned when people tell me to go back home, I just smile and they wonder, why is he smiling? And I look them right in the eyes and say, no way, I will not go back to Kansas. I like it here in Oklahoma. True story. I was born in Kansas City, Kansas, in fact, to a Catholic mother and a Muslim father. But nevertheless, to be told to go back home is really anti-American. Because each and every one of us, it doesn't matter if we're an Afghan who just arrived a few weeks ago, or if we're a white American who has been here for hundreds of years. Each and every one of us, for the most part, are immigrants to this land. We are a country of immigrants. And we have to recognize that opening our doors and embracing people who, like our new Afghan neighbors, have gone through very difficult circumstances is part of what the American dream is all about. I have met with these individuals. I have talked with them for hours and hours. We have assisted them with hygiene items, with clothing, with food, with finding job opportunities, with getting their kids enrolled in school, and so on and so forth. And I've come to the conclusion that we actually have more in common than we have different. In fact, people ask me, what is the difference between an Afghan and an Okie? And I say, there's really only one thing I can come up with, is that Afghans, unlike Okies, will actually learn to speak English the proper way. What can you say? So the holy month of Ramadan. In Islam, we have 5 pillars that are very integral to our faith. The first is the profession of faith, and that is to believe that there is only one God and that Muhammad is the last and final messenger of God. The second is to pray 5 times a day. So I tell people, Muslims, we are obsessed with prayer. We pray dawn, noon, afternoon, night, sunset, and night, 5 times a day, 365 days a year. That's 1,875 prayers each and every year. So praying 5 times a day is a very integral part of the life of a Muslim. Third is the fasting during the holy month of Ramadan. One time I was doing a training to a group of teachers and I said, for 30 days we don't eat or drink and we fast and try to give more attention to worship. And this lady just about fell out of her chair and she said, you don't eat or drink for 30 days? I said, I'm sorry, let me clarify, it's only during sunup hours. She thought for some reason we didn't eat or drink for an entire month. Fourth, it is that we give charity once a year, and that is also known as zakat. And it is quite common that during the month of Ramadan, people will give their charitable contributions. So not only is it a month of fasting, but it's also a month of charity. And then fifth is the pilgrimage to the Hajj pilgrimage to the holy site, Mecca in Saudi Arabia, that a Muslim is to take once in his or her lifetime if they are physically and financially capable. But we're going to focus on the holy month of Ramadan. Ramadan is a month in which Muslims do not eat, drink, and abstain from things like smoking and sexual relations during the sunlight hours. The idea is not to starve yourself. It's not that we don't go hungry. Yeah, I'm very hungry right now, especially after all this talk of the things that were on the table, right? I was visualizing the beef and chicken and the baklava, and I was like, whoa, I can't eat until 7:54 p.m. Right, we get hungry, we get thirsty, we get tired. Yesterday, which typically happens on the first day, I had the worst headache because of caffeine withdrawals. But it's not just about leaving these things. It's about doing this because God commanded us to in the Quran, our Holy Scripture. And this month is about using our time to focus our attention more on worshiping God, staying away from things that normally we may not realize we do, like using bad language or thinking negatively about things or even losing our anger. I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old at home. It's quite easy sometimes as a parent to get angry before you realize, well, maybe there's better ways to parent. So Ramadan is about getting closer to God. Ramadan is also about community, because at 7:54 p.m., as you can imagine, whereas during perhaps the normal schedule, people are eating here, eating there, families, friends, and community come together for what's called an iftar meal, and we break our fast on dates, milk, and other cultural delights. Also, during the nighttime of Ramadan, after the night prayer, there are additional prayers called tarawih, which are additional prayers that are optional, but most people choose to partake in. And starting from the first night of Ramadan until the end, the entire Quran is recited from start to finish. As I said before, this month is also about charity. If someone has money, wealth, and can part with some of that, it's encouraged to donate to people in need. But even if not, it's encouraged that you give whatever time you have. For the past almost 15 years, the Muslim community has partaken in our Ramadan Day of Service at the Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma as an example of this. In fact, before COVID, at our highest number, we had about 300 Muslims gathering together at the Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma while we're fasting, but preparing food boxes for people in need. And in a place like Oklahoma, when 1 in 4 people are food insecure, meaning that 25% of our population does not know where their next meal will come from, that is such an important thing. So during this holy month of Ramadan, while Muslims are struggling a little bit, if you have Muslim friends, if you have Muslim neighbors or colleagues, or if you're working with our new Afghan neighbors, know that sometimes our days are difficult, but also our days are filled with spiritual upliftment and the joy that that can bring. And after 30 days of sacrifice, we invite you to join us, because on May 2nd, we will have our Eid al-Fitr holiday. It's what we like to call the return of the fork. A Star Wars reference, if you will. It is a day in which we return back to eating and drinking during daylight hours. We get together and have meals with friends and family. We have a communal prayer at the Islamic Society of Greater Oklahoma City, and we give gifts to children and celebrate the day much like Christmas would be celebrated. And that would be May 2nd. So Eid al-Fitr is a wonderful holiday, and I encourage you to join us at the Islamic Society if you so choose, or use that day to celebrate with our new Afghan neighbors. So I end with a few minutes talking about our new Afghan community. Last year in August, we got the call from Catholic Charities, and they said, we need some help because we have Afghans coming into Oklahoma. We said, okay, we'd be glad to help. We didn't realize exactly what that would mean at that time. So when they called us, we said, look, we are not specialists in resettling refugees. We've known refugees over the years, we've assisted them, but this is not our bread and butter. So tell us how we can help. So slowly but surely, we committed to first providing them with welcome kits. These were very important because they not only provided them with PPE items, hygiene items, because as we heard, many of them came with nothing but the clothes they were wearing and maybe a suitcase or two. We also provided them with a copy of the Holy Quran and a prayer rug to let them know that even though you left your home, even though you've left everything that you've ever known, your faith and your culture are safe here in Oklahoma. As we prepared those kits, we got a call from Catholic Charities and said, look, the timings when people arrive would not coincide with the times we're able to get food delivered to the hotels where they will be staying. Can you do welcome meals from a local Muslim-owned restaurant? We said, sure. And then the needs started coming in, clothing and this and that. And we opened our doors to accept clothing. I'll warn you, if anyone ever tells you, let's do a clothing drive for people, run away. Because we started out with about 5 bags of clothing, and next thing you know, there were so much clothes, which is a good thing to have, that we couldn't even walk into our office building. Thankfully, the owners of our building gave us some extra space where we could create a clothing room. Some of you have been there. So that our new Afghan neighbors, once they settled down, could come and shop for clothing so that they could have clothes to wear and feel better as they settle into their new life. As time went on, we started to realize the needs would increase as they arrived here in Oklahoma. And here we are about 7 months later, and we've received more than 1,000 just in the Oklahoma City area, with 800 in Tulsa, and actually a portion of those 800 having relocated to Stillwater in conjunction with Oklahoma State University. That being said, so much work is still to be done. The hard work, I'm starting to realize, was not getting them here. It was not providing them with the welcome kit and welcome meal. It wasn't even giving them that initial box or bag of clothing. The hard work is now, where many of them need help learning English, help enrolling their kids in school, help finding jobs, and more so than jobs, careers, and help really building that foundation. Because here in Oklahoma, we want our Afghan neighbors to stay here, not just for a year or two, but for generations and generations to come. Selfishly, I want that because we could really use a good Afghan restaurant or two. I've been to some in Washington, D.C., and they're phenomenal. But furthermore, I look towards the future and I say, wow, what we have seen in our very lifetimes could very well happen in a place like Oklahoma, where a woman by the name of Ilhan Omar, who is a Somali refugee, a Muslim who wears the headscarf, the hijab, living in Minnesota, said, you know what? I want to see positive change in society. And with some encouragement from people around her, she ran for office. She was the first Somali refugee elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives. And she didn't stop there. She decided to run for Congress, and she became the first Somali refugee to ever sit in the United States Congress. So who knows? Maybe one day we will have Afghans serving on city council, in the Oklahoma House, the Senate, or who knows? What could be some people's worst nightmare, an Afghan governor. But even though I joke about that, I would love to see it because what I've seen in my lifetime, and I just turned 39 the other day, and it caused me to reflect a lot on what I have seen. And what I have seen is that our diversity, our differences, the beautiful tapestry that we truly are as a city, a state, and a country are what make us better. And what a beautiful place Oklahoma is going to be because we opened our doors and we accepted people who truly needed us at a time when others maybe wouldn't. Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you for being so kind and welcoming. And again, I leave you with the same greeting I came to you with. Assalamu alaikum, and may God's peace be upon you all.
We now extinguish this flame, but not the light of love and community, which burns in our hearts.
We'll conclude our service today with a hymn sung by the entire congregation. Immediately after the hymn, we invite you to stop into Daniel Hall to grab a cup of coffee or some water, and then join us outside in the courtyard for fellowship and conversation. And so may peace be upon you. May peace be with you. May peace be under you, over you, beside you, around you. May peace be within you. Peace, peace, peace. Now please rise in body or in spirit for our hymn, which is number 318 in the gray hymnal, We Would Be One.